Welcome to another episode of Cheers to Careers. I'm Steve Ridinghouse, a Career and Outreach Coordinator for the School of Journalism and Mass Communication. Today we have Sam Mellinger, Vice President of Communications for the Kansas City Royals and a 2000 KU grad. Sam, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So I think you started your job, about mid-December?
Yeah.
I know with the lockout, probably a crazy time to be starting. So what's the last 3-4 months been like?
Yeah, I mean, my joke, and it's not really a joke, but when the CBA got done, I started telling people like, now I can finally do the job that they hired me to do. And the first 3 months, then 2 months, whatever it was a lot of. I'm glad I had the time. I tried to make the most of it, just meeting people and HR stuff, all that, like getting everything lined up so that when things hit, I could kind of hit the ground running. But it's been great. I mean, it's been a lot of fun. I knew a lot of these people for a long time, just because of my old job. So there's not a lot of surprises, no bad surprises, notably. And it's been a really good group. Everybody here has been real supportive of, sort of grace for me as I try to learn some things and then also maybe some appreciation when there's certain things that my old life has prepared me well for.
And I think I saw a quote, I thought it was well said. You started to think of this job as the one I never knew I wanted. Can you kind of expand on that? I mean, do you feel like this is a job that's a good fit for you right now?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I know that like, look, I'm very aware of this, right? The small segment of people that give a damn what I do professionally. There were some in that little segment that was, oh, he's out of journalism, he got away, he got out, all that stuff. And that wasn't what was in my heart or in my head. That wasn't a part of my thought process at all. That's not something I talked to my wife about, and I talked to her more about this than anybody else. I could have done that old job for 100 years if they would have let me and been perfectly happy. I love that job. But what I mean when I say that is that it was a new opportunity, something fresh, the right mix of being a little scared that you're doing something new and you might be out over your skis and you better get going, but also a certain comfort level in, I know how the media world works, right? Like I know at least a working knowledge of how baseball teams work. I know the people that I'm joining, from the ownership all the way down to everybody, and so there was no way. I was really lucky at the Star to work with some people that I really enjoyed and respected, and of all the things that had to line up for me to ever go somewhere else, one of the most important was to not take a step back in that area, to have people that I'm gonna enjoy just talking to as friends, but also respect professionally and want the same things and push for the same things and all that. And I just, all these things really lined up in a way that I never would have expected.
And speaking of the Star, I believe you were there for 21 years, and I might get all your roles wrong, but I think you started with high schools. You did high school columns, and then I think were you the Major League Baseball columnist for a while, and then you became the overall columnist?
Yeah. So there's about 5-6 years in there was, they called it the National Baseball Features. It was basically, I did a lot of Royals, but also just kind of coverage of baseball as a whole. Yep.
And then about 10 years ago, you became the overall columnist, and I think I read, that's about the time Poznanski and Jason left, and I think you had some doubts, right? Am I the guy for this?
I mean, look, like that's not where I pictured my career going, to be honest. Like until I actually joked to my boss, like when those guys, there was one opening, I forgot the timing. Both those guys left the paper pretty, within a short period of time. And one of them left, I was just talking to my boss about, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And I just, like, in my mind, I was joking. I was like, well, I'd like that job. And he looked at me and he was like, I actually think that you're a good candidate. Like, let's talk about that. And I was like, whoa, if he thinks that, then we went through with it. And I mean, in the span of, I think this is true, in the span of about 6 weeks, it might've been less than that, the Star went from Jason and Joe together, to just me. And that was intimidating as hell. I was not, I I was in my 20s, and I was not ready. Like I didn't think, and there was a fear of failure that motivated me in a good way. And I think that I kind of stunk at the job. This is not like false modesty at all. Like I think that I stunk at the job for a while until the woman who's now my wife, um, she's interested in sports and she's reading and she's like, this is not you. Like, it's like, you're too serious. Like, this isn't who you are. You got to lighten up and have fun with it. And, because before that, I was just so intimidated by the scale of the challenge in my mind that everything had to be serious. And when Katie said that, it just kind of unlocked something for me a little bit. And I'm not saying that by any stretch that I was, great at the job or whatever, but I was more at peace with what I was doing, and it was more myself, and I felt more comfortable, and hopefully did a good enough job.
And before the Star, actually, I think I know you from your hometown newspaper, Lawrence Sterner World Days. I started there late July of '94. You might have already been there. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, you were doing some, the stuff that nobody wanted to do. I think you were doing the on the street, obituaries, news briefs. But it seemed like at that time, I remember you really seemed to soak it all in.
Yeah, I always say like, and it's the truth. Like I was the weird kid. Like I just knew what I wanted to do since I was like 10, 12 years old. I mean, really, and some of that, my aunt, who Gwen Mellinger, was a newspaper reporter for a long time, and we had 4 newspapers delivered to my house when I was a kid. Before I could read them. You know what I mean? And they were just always around. And I never really knew or cared that much about politics and news. I hate saying that, but it's just the truth. It was sports. That's what I was interested in, and that's what I started reading. And I think my mom she was a writer, for part of her career, and so I think she loved the idea that her kid wanted to be a writer, but like kind of hated the idea. Hate's not the right word, but just really sports, like, don't you want to be a novelist or whatever? And it was her idea that I started the Journal World. And you're right, it would have been about 94. It was her idea. And I think she basically wanted me to get in there and see that it wasn't for me, and I was doing all the stuff nobody else wanted to do. You mentioned the obits and news briefs, and, I had to count up by hand. They had this comic survey. That I
Yeah.
am sure that I screwed up the count, by the way. But it's basically just doing all the stuff that nobody else wanted to do, and I loved it. I just like being in that environment and just the creative tension, and I love the idea that you never knew when something would pop, and you would have to scramble. Your day would get tossed upside down. I loved it. And Chuck Woodling, who was the sports editor at that point, like eventually let me cover a couple sort of games that if I screwed it up, the world would not end. And it just went from there. I got really lucky. Just a lot of timing lined up for me to be able to do everything that I was able to do.
And I don't know if you remember this, but we took one road trip together. We split up state baseball, state track.
I think it was in '98. I think you were a big Kerry Wood fan, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think he had just struck out like 20. I think that was the month he struck out 20. And you were so excited about that.
Yeah, one of the most dominating games that anybody's ever played. Could have been a no-hitter. The one hit could have been an error. I'm just saying.
And I know you talked about the challenges of replacing, like, say, Whitlock, Poznanski. What about similar role with Mike Swanson? I would imagine. I mean, 43 years, I believe, in Major League Baseball, 15 with the Royals. I mean, is that intimidating, or is he? I think he's probably helping you along a little bit.
Swanee's great. Yeah, I mean, we're friends, and here's a story that I laugh about now. We have enough of a relationship that he called, a couple weeks or whatever it was before he announced that he was retiring. Just to kind of give me a heads up, and he called, and just, hey, I would just want you to know, don't want you here anywhere else. Like, this is what's happening, and Steve, like, my response, I said a word that I'm not going to repeat right now. Okay. And I kind of caught myself and was like, I'm sorry, man, I shouldn't have said that. Congratulations. You've earned it. That's great. But I'm just kind of sad because whoever they hire to replace you is going to be worse for us. That's how I thought about it. And now here I am. There are some parts of, Swanee has, and I'm using it present tense, not past tense on purpose. But he has like some superpowers that I can barely hope to replicate. But he also, I have a different set of experiences, and my hope here is that all the things that Swanee has set up that work well, let's keep all that, and let's keep that going. And there's some continuation on the staff. I got really lucky, Steve, with Nick Capel and Ian Kraft are holdovers in our department, and they are unbelievable. I mean, I can't believe how lucky I got keeping these guys on. And we just hired a woman, Logan Jones, another Sharita Hutton, and they're all awesome. But we're able to kind of keep those things going. And you know what? Maybe there's some things that Swanee did and they worked, but maybe we can change a little bit that work better for us or for the reporters or for the players or for some combination of all three. And, just try to constantly move things forward a little bit.
I know one thing when I advise KU journalism students, like with their career path jobs, I always think every job's kind of got its own rhythm to it. Have you found that rhythm yet, or is it going to take some time to get in that routine, you think?
Yeah, I've found the spring training rhythm.
Yeah.
That's very different than the regular season rhythm. And I would imagine that it'll take at least a few weeks, in some ways, probably a few years, if we're being honest, but, just to kind of catch that, I'm to the place where I'm relatively confident that I'm not just going to be the worst person ever to have this job. Like, I think I can, just move the chains and sort of, do the stuff that needs to be done. But I'm really looking forward to when the games start to count, finding the spots where I can be of service to the people around me. And that's different than what it is on March 29th or whatever the date is today that we're talking. And just being able to sort of be part of this huge operation and we're all pulling in the same way. I see some of that, just like this much, a sliver of it during spring training, but I think in the regular season, it goes to a different level.
And how's the relationship? I know you still have a lot of friends in the media. How's that relationship changed? It's always fun to follow the Twitter banter of some of your friends. I think I saw a spring training game started maybe 1 minute late, and somebody, hey, can Mellinger explain this?
Sure.
How's that banter going?
It's been good. I mean, I had, some people you're closer to than others, right? But I would describe my relationship with most of the media in Kansas City as at least neutral, if not good and positive and a plus. It is different. I met with some of them, before I came down here. And, just with the idea of like, look, like we have a certain relationship right now or have had where we're sort of on the same side. And we see that, our jobs are pretty similar and all these things, but now this is different. And while I don't think that we're on different sides, I'd still like to think that we're on the same side, that we want the same things. The relationship is different. And what I told them all is that if you believe right now that I'm honest and that I've never lied to you and there's no reason for that to change, if we can start with that foundation, and knowing that there might be a day in April, May, June, July, whatever, where you think I'm full of it, and I'm not doing my job very well, and the other way around, right? Like this goes both ways, and that's fine. But if we can get to where we don't let that little moment in time, define the relationship from a broader perspective, if that makes sense. If we can get to that point and just remember this foundation we have right now, we can move forward. And I think that's where we're at. It's a good group. I mean, like, especially the beat group that's been down here, some of them all spring, but certainly most of the spring. It's there's some things that they ask for that we just can't do, right? And there's some things maybe that I wish they do that they're not going to do, and I get that. And hopefully that background of me having done at least a similar job to what they do, I understand the stresses, I understand the pressure points a little bit, and can hopefully help to massage some of that and make their life a little bit more efficient and better. Maybe we can find a way to go forward that's better for both sides.
And I know when you started your career, social media really wasn't a thing. I think it was about 2007, 2008 when it really took off in the media. Are you able to? It seems like you really embrace social media. Are you able to continue that? Because you always seem to have some fun with it, with the Mellinger minutes, and you're always quick to respond. Are you going to be able to maintain that in your new role?
Yeah, the real answer is I'm not quite sure. It's different. I mean, I certainly am on Twitter in a different way now than before. There's things that I said before that I'm not going to say now, with this job. But, I didn't go back and like have to delete tweets, like I didn't have to there wasn't some tweet where I was like, said Dayton Moore is the dumbest person or what, like there wasn't any of that. So it's just, it's different now. I think mostly there's no reason for me to say anything on Twitter that's not promoting something the team's done or whatever. But responses I think are different, and, here's a small example. There was 2 weeks ago, something like that. It doesn't matter. There was a story that came out and I can't even remember what outlet, and that doesn't matter either, but they were talking about a downtown stadium and a potential downtown ballpark. And they used some renderings that a local firm in Kansas City did on their own. Nobody, they weren't hired by anybody, but they did them on their own, which is great. But the way that the headline and the story were put together, if you're just scrolling through Twitter real fast, you can kind of maybe think like that's what a downtown ballpark that the Royals would want to build is going to look like. And somebody said, God, I hate this stadium, or I forgot exactly. It was a negative reaction to those drawings. And all I said was like, that is not an official rendering from the Royals. And, there's little times like that where I can kind of hopefully nip things in the bud a little bit before they spread. But it is different, but I still think social media can be a good tool if used the right way.
And I know we talked a little bit about you starting your career. What activities were you involved with during your time at KU? I know you were on the Daily Canton staff for a while. Were you pretty much all journalism during your time at KU?
Yeah, I didn't do any like student senate or anything like that. I lived in a fraternity my freshman year, kind of made some great friends that I'm still friends with now, but it wasn't really my thing. And I moved out after my freshman year. Intramural sports, that doesn't really count. But yeah, for the most part, it was work. It was there was a lot of Journal World. There was I think it was just a semester. I think I stopped doing games for you guys at the Journal World just for one semester, because there was one where the UDK, the Kansan, kind of takes up all your spare time and you just wouldn't have enough time. So I left for one semester and then went back, did some, the Capital Journal, Topeka Capital Journal gave me a great opportunity. Kurt Kaywood was so good to me, where I basically covered KU. Kurt was the lead for sure. But I was there sort of, as the backup to him. That was a great experience as well.
And I don't know if you
New
knew
role, I think I joked with you once you got the job. I don't know if you remember this, and I don't think I was the only one. Everybody knows you're a Bo Jackson fan. So do you have the authority to set up a Bo Jackson Day if you wanted to? Can that happen or not?
What's funny is that, for a long time, so Bo Jackson is not in the Royals Hall of Fame.
I know. I can't believe it.
And I've written more than I could about my old job about they need to put him in, and I've voted for him. I've been a voter in the past and all these things. And there was a moment where, after I had started, somebody else internally who's a fellow Bo guy, walked in. He's like, we're stacking the deck. We're stacking the deck to get him in. I'm obviously an advocate. There's no bigger, Bo has meant more in my life than I should admit as an adult. But yeah, I still don't want to meet him though. I still never ever want to meet him. I want.
Oh, you haven't met Bo Jackson?
Wow. And some of it's been on purpose. There's been a couple times then I was out here at spring training and he comes out, maybe not every year, but most years. And I avoid, he's got the perfect place in my life. I want him to stay there.
I know you're getting close to wrapping up spring training. You head back, Tuesday after your last spring training game to Kansas City, is that right?
Yep.
Anything special planned for opening day from your end, or is it pretty much going to be business as usual?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew exactly what business as usual would mean for me, but yeah, I mean, we get back, we fly in like late Tuesday night, we'll land, and then Wednesday there'll be a workout at the stadium, a lot of media stuff. And then Thursday, yeah, Thursday's go day. I mean, that's, hopefully until October, right? But that'll be the biggest day of the year until hopefully October. So yeah, it's a lot of coordination. And that's where, again, Sharita is doing a lot of that lifting. Ian Kraft in our department is going back on Friday to kind of help out with Logan and all these things. And hopefully we can pull it off.
And I know we talked briefly right before we started this conversation. You have seen your family in the past month, which is great, but I assume you're looking forward to being back home for a while.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, look, when they called and sort of said, hey, is this something that you might be interested in? You know, that was my first, like, no, I can't be away from Katie and the kids that much. And I actually put it that way. Like after I got off the phone and talked to her, I was like, look, this is a weird call. I wouldn't, whatever. And I told her what happened. I was like, I just told him I can't, she's like, are you crazy? Like, this is a great, because she's heard how I talk about the Royals. She's heard, even in the moments where I think they've messed up or I disagree with whatever. I just have always had an enormous respect for how they operate and why they do what they do, the reasons behind, their decisions. And that was her point. And she's like, we can make everything else work, and if you want to keep doing this job that you enjoy for the rest of your life, that's great. That's great. But here's a new opportunity to do something completely different. And once I got my head around the idea that, Katie's got it locked down and it's going to be fine. There's enough ways. There's FaceTime. We're going to take the kids on a trip or two during the summer. I got back, our wedding anniversary is February 18th. I went back for that. Our second grader's birthday is February 27th. I went back for that. They came down for spring break. So I've been able to see them, which has been nice, but that has been probably the hardest part of the job for sure so far.
I know you've got a game to head to. I always like to, graduation.
We're 7 weeks away. Say if you were asked to be a commencement speaker, do you have any advice for the class of 22 and how they can prepare?
I mean, gosh, if I was ever like a speech even half that important, I would stress about it for weeks. The first thing that comes to mind is like, don't be afraid to fail. I tell people in my old life, there'd be some younger writers, college students, younger, whatever. And I used to tell them all the time, just go back and read what you did 6 months ago, 9 months ago, whatever. And if you do that and you never look at that and just think it's terrible, you're not doing it right. That means you're not taking enough chances. That means you're not trying to evolve a little bit. And I think that, sort of being able to get over that fear of just looking silly or, looking like you're in over your head. That's when you learn, there's this old, I love this line, like one of the oldest lines about baseball is it's a game of failure. Right. And I've heard a couple people say, failure is a bad word. It's a game of opportunity. Like you never lose. You either win or you learn. There is no losing. And I think that that's a pretty good way to approach life. You either get better or you learn. And I think that if you can keep that perspective as much as possible, I think you're on the right path.
Well, Sam, great advice. We might have to sign you up to be a speaker one of these days. Hey, I don't know if you're able to find a Royals cup, but I always like to give a toast. Or maybe you got a nacho bowl. I don't know. I know you're nacho.
I wish I had nachos. All I have is this water.
Well, again, it's been fun to watch you. Wow, since you were 16. It's been fun to see your career track and go after it. So, hey, cheers to you, Sam. Have a good 22.
All right. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it.
All right. See you, Sam.